have a huge announcement to share with you guys. You just need to stick with me right to the end to find out what that announcement is. And it's going to pertain to the next episode. All right? So, let's get started.
We have a signal now for when I'm needed. But when that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning to them.
Yes, sir. Welcome to the Gotham Chronicles Beyond the Bat Signal. I am your host, Domenic Iannicca. Join me as we dive into the Batman's lore, dissecting the Rogues Gallery, and uncovering the stories of our iconic vigilante known as the Dark Knight. Thank you very much for tuning in today Thank you very much for tuning into today's episode, where we're going to discuss why Batman is so captivating. Why is it that everyone loves the Caped Crusader himself, Batman? But before we begin, I want to thank each of our listeners for tuning in. For those of you that are new, welcome. You can catch new episodes anywhere you listen to podcasts. If you would like to follow along, then feel free to follow me at X/Twitter at Beyond Bat Signal. And if you like what we're doing, please feel free to consider giving us 5 stars and rate and review the show on any platform that you get your podcasts, such as Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Music. Doesn't matter. If you'd like, do them all. As it helps really. Listen, when you rate and review, give it 5 stars, it actually brings the show, and it goes a long way to supporting and allowing us to be seen. So that is with great appreciation if you would do that. Now, time to begin this episode 12, where, listen, this is almost like it's going to be a 2-parter, because I was like, the psychology of, anybody really interests me. For those of you that don't know, I am an educator, and one of the subjects that I love teaching is psychology, and why people do what they do, how they think the way they think. And I just feel like you're never done learning that. And at the same time, I was thinking about Batman from a broad perspective, right? And why is he the way that he is? And then it kind of led me down a bit more of a broader approach as to why people love Batman so much. Like, he's arguably everyone's favorite superhero, and this guy doesn't even have superpowers. Why is that? And I want to break it down into 10 main reasons as to why, at least for me. I'm not going to speak for every single one of you, but you look at YouTubers or even like podcasts, and I'd say some of people's favorites, I think, in terms of views, YouTubers have expressed that they have to actually pump out Batman content because that's what gets the most views. And that right away just tells me that Batman is one of the most captivating superheroes out there. That's what people want to see. I'd say him and Spider-Man are the top 2 superheroes that people love and enjoy, right? And you could have those 2 characters rebooted and people will still tune in. They're done right. I'd say Batman right now more than Spider-Man. That's just my opinion. Not saying that the MCU Spider-Man isn't great. I like him. I just prefer Tobey and Andrew Garfield ahead of Mr. Holland over there. So, again, subjective. Now, let's go into the 10 reasons why I think Batman is just why he's so captivating and he's everyone's favorite. Okay. So, number one, I think that will be on most people's list is Batman and his relatability. He can relate to almost everybody. Um, because he's so grounded, because he is so, I guess, real in comparison to someone like Spider-Man. We can't web sling. We can't fly like Superman. We can't have a ring and have it glow green like Green Lantern. You know, but Batman is unlike many of his heroes. He's human and he has no superpowers. He's simply relying on his intellect, his physical strength, and training and determination, all of which we are capable of. The only thing we lack, I'd say most of us, is we don't have billions and billions of dollars to invest in, right? You know, maybe 2% of you do, which is incredible. And by all means, hey, then be Batman. But in all seriousness, I mean, I always think back to, and when it comes to training, I immediately think of Batman Begins when you have Bruce Wayne, Christian Bale, training. And just how he's on, it almost looks like those little small, thin platforms, or the will to act, wherein he's like standing on ice. And it's like right away, you kind of have this sense of belief that I could be Batman. You know, there's like, not only that, like, you know, so for fun, I enjoy doing a lot of physical activity, whether it's weight training or boxing. I do enjoy it. Okay. And especially when it's boxing, it's like, you know, you ever wonder, okay, well, if this situation ever arose, like, how would I handle it? Or it's like, what would Bruce Wayne or Batman do? And the one thing I've always wanted to do, just never got into it, was doing something like jiu-jitsu, right? Which for many of us, it's very accessible to find a training ground where you can learn a martial art, right? And just like Bruce Wayne, you know, he was able to learn, I'm sure, multiple different types of martial arts, but one of which is for sure jiu-jitsu. The guy doesn't have superpowers, okay? So, and then intellect, right? You know, he's a detective. This guy's brilliant, you know. So for him, it takes time to study his opponent and, you know, to do the work, to be the detective that many of us, I'm sure, it's, you know, more than capable of doing as long as we're able to apply ourselves, right? When it comes to trying to figure something out, it could be as simple as a math problem. If you sit there and dedicate yourself, then, yeah, I guess in the words of Ra's al Ghul, if you commit yourself to an ideal, then you'll become more than just a man, right? So good. And with that, you know, relatability, like Bruce Wayne and Batman had a mentor. He's had multiple mentors, right? Alfred being one, Lucius Fox, you know, are two good mentors that he's looked up to. In some stories, Ra's al Ghul is another mentor, for better or for worse, right? But he is, I would say, the most relatable character. You know, he's experienced loss and tragedy and has had a lot to overcome, which I would say many of us have had a lot to overcome. And how do we cope with it, right? Watching especially the Nolan trilogy, it's kind of like, you know, when we experience something traumatic in our lives, how do we kind of respond to it, right? And then you kind of look to Batman and Bruce Wayne, and it's like, well, this was his response. So how is he handling it? Now, that leads into number 2. Batman is a complex character. He has a very rich backstory. With it's 85 years this year, so you know he's got 85 years of storytelling in his back pocket, and there is so much to read, so much to learn, and he's been around for decades, right? For better or for worse. I mean, I think it was the silver age of comic books where, Batman was not that popular. But again, and then there's a psychological depth. So I was just talking about trauma that he's endured, right? I'm sure many of us have experienced loss or something that we've seen that we wish we never seen. And it's, that depth as to not necessarily watching, God forbid, someone passing away, but to just think, well, you know what, Batman went through this traumatic event and so did I, and how am I going to respond, and what would Batman do, right? Dealing with personal trauma, every single one of us, it is a learned skill, for better or for worse, and unfortunately, that it's how do we learn how to cope with it, right? Which may take years. So, there's a lot of stories of Bruce Wayne as a young kid. There's even the prequel to the Batman saga. So that movie, there's like a children's book that's based off the movie, but it's a prequel. And it's how Bruce Wayne responds after the loss of his parents, right? And as a kid, obviously he's going to rebel. He's going to find interests that interest him. And he's going to do things that may not necessarily agree with the parent or guardians, right? And then there's moral dilemmas. Every single one of us daily are dealing with a dilemma. So, and it could be as simple as, I found out about this friend. Do I tell my friend about this news, right? And it's a dilemma. You might go to friends for advice to say, what should I do? You have those what should I do scenarios, okay? Bruce Wayne in Batman is a very, very complex character. Not only that, he's got 3 different types of masks. He's got the billionaire playboy mask that he wears in public, right? Which, in my opinion, is, his most non-truest self, right? Where he kind of is a very laissez-faire playboy, loves to be around the women. And then you have the Bruce Wayne character that lives at Wayne Mansion, and he's a little bit more serious, a little bit doing the detective work, but putting on the mask of Batman. That is his truest self. That's who he is to his core. And just as Rachel Dawes says in Batman Begins at the end, your mask is now the one that criminals now fear. And again, he is one complex individual. So, which kind of, and then this is why I wanted to say, there's going to be a 2-parter for this type of podcast or this episode, because in all honesty, psychologically, that's where it gets really complex, and the personality of Bruce Wayne opens up. Number 3, and I would say that this is arguably one of the most important parts of Batman, is his rogues gallery. He has got a deep bench of rogues. And, you start off with the Joker, who, just to right off the bat, you have a villain who is recognizable all across the world. You have a villain who there was a movie released just on the villain named Joker, and that movie made $1 billion. Rated R film made $1 billion. I do not think, I highly, 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 highly believe that there will be no other villain that can reach that magnitude. I mean, Venom, he seems to be pretty popular with the masses. He's got the look, but so does Joker. And it's Joker especially is very complex because, just as Alfred says, there is no logic to what Joker does. Can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or unnegotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn. Alfred's Pennyworth summarized Joker to a T. And then he's got other rogues gallery. He's got the Penguin. He's got Catwoman. He's got Harvey Two-Face, the Riddler, just to name a few. All very compelling. Then there's other ones like Hush, Phantasm, which are, I'd say, fairly new in the Batman mythos. Ra's al Ghul is another big one. Clayface. And, the list goes on. And it's like, how do they challenge Batman? And they all challenge him in very unique ways. You have Bane, for example, who is not only smart, but he is strong. And he is probably Batman's biggest adversary. If you were to go toe to toe, right? Like, Bane is strong and smart, and it's like, well, Batman really has to think of how to take this individual down, right? And then you got Joker, who just does not care. And, Joker loves that the fact that Batman's alive, and it's like, that's what makes him thrive, and that's what makes him go, right? It's incredible as to how iconic the vigilantes are, or the villains are in Batman's rogues gallery. It's incredible, right? And the conversation always surrounds each Batman film is which villain is going to be in the next Batman film. I read, I do read. I'll go on BatmanOnFilm.com, and a lot of people will. Bill Jet Ramey, he'll do like a mailbag each month. He'll do a mailbag, so I'll read in, and I'd say every other month there's always someone that's going to ask, who do you think the next villain is going to be in the Batman film? And his response will be whatever the director Matt Reeves wants. Doesn't matter, right? But people want to know, right? Like, and we're guessing. I'm not going to lie. I've thought about it. Is the Riddler going to return? Is the Joker going to make a longer appearance? Will it be Clayface? Who will it be? Will it be someone different? Right? And it's because he's got so many iconic villains. Even like the Mob are iconic, right? Like, you got the Penguin series coming out. You got a villain in the Penguin, and then you got the Maronis and Falcones who are involved in this, which immediately it's got my interest peaked. Okay, number 4 is the number 4 reason as to what makes Batman so compelling. Gotham City itself. Gotham City is a character in its own right. It is dark, it's grungy, it's not bright, colorful, and beautiful like Metropolis. Gotham City, there is a lot of depth there. And there's a lot going on into that dark city. And it's Batman who wants to clean his city up. I just think of how Tim Burton or Matt Reeves really recreated and envisioned these cities, as something that is grimy, something that has grit to it. And, there is, I don't know, it's almost like, and I also think of how Lee Bermejo would draw it, and there's just a lot of depth to this city. It's a dark atmosphere where, and Gotham City adds a unique flavor to Batman's stories. It's almost like a compliment to Batman, right? It's dark. Batman is part of the shadows. There's always people running rampant, and it just feels like it's never ending. Like, when is this city ever going to get cleaned up? And I think one of the most compelling things is, how is Gotham City going to look, right? People loved how in Batman 89 Gotham City looked. People loved how in Batman Begins Chris Nolan did it. And same thing with The Batman by Matt Reeves. There was something just beautiful about the rain constantly pouring in. It just felt gloomy. And people look into that, and they appreciate Gotham City being depicted by that. And then you get movies such as, Batman and Robin. You get movies such as The Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, where people are like, I'm not too high on this prim and proper Gotham City. Not a fan of it. And that's how I feel as well. Okay, now, number 5, Batman's moral code. I think that is something where Batman has morals and values that he stands by, which I feel like many of us strive to have, right? We all, listen, every single one of us has values that we've grown up with, and we have morals that we abide by. Things that we truly appreciate, truly value, something like his no-kill code, right? His refusal to kill, and it's something where it's just a non-starter. I know that there's a couple movies that were loose on that, and you could see, like, I know Keaton's Batman and Affleck's Batman did kill, but in the comics and in Nolan's verse, Batman does not kill, right? And I think every single one of us has morals and values that are just non-starters, right? Like, it's just something that we're like, yeah, I'm not doing that. No, I'm good. And you can kind of look at this individual and say, for him, for Batman, certain things, there is just, these are the rights and values that he has, and he stands by it. And it's something like a role model that people can look to and say, I appreciate that. He could squash Joker like a bug. Joker killed Jason Todd's Robin, and Batman could have killed Joker, but he chose not to. And in the line that was from Batman Begins, where Bruce Wayne says, it separates us from them. And it's true, right? Batman never wants to get over the edge. And even in Batman Forever, I thought that Val Kilmer's Bruce Wayne did a good job, where he's basically explaining to Dick Grayson, so you kill another one, and another one, and another one, and then what next, right? Those are all morals and values, right? Like, and then Batman and Bruce Wayne, they have this code where it's like, listen, I'm going to go there. And it was a vow to his parents that he says, I'm going to go out there each and every night to avenge my parents' death and make sure that this does not happen to another family again. And when it comes to something like that, like, I appreciate that. Like, that's something where I'm like, I guess there's certain people that you just kind of relate to. And when it comes to certain values, I immediately relate to that. Right? And I appreciate it. Same thing with, like, I don't know if people watch Suits, or if you've ever watched Harvey Specter or even Mike Ross. Like, they have certain codes and morals, right? Where it's just a refusal to perjure oneself. Simple as that. Right? And each of us do have morals amongst each other, as friends, as family, and within our own selves. We have beliefs and values that we strive to have and practice each and every day. No different from Batman. That's what makes him so relatable. Number 6 is Batman's detective skills. So often called the world's greatest detective, Batman has problem-solving abilities, and obviously, every single, like, it's kind of funny. So at my age now, I look at math and I'm like, wow, this subject that gave me such a headache growing up, I look for as something that it's a problem, but it's a fun problem to solve, right? And I look at a lot of these math questions now, and I'm like, man, I look forward to trying to figure this out. It's a puzzle for me. It's a puzzle piece. Same thing with something like Sudoku, right? When they give you a puzzle or an escape room, right? Listen, if you've ever been part of an escape room, there's a reason why they're so popular. It's because people have fun doing it. They try to challenge themselves and figure this all out. For Batman, I mean, it's unfortunately has to do with life, but he tries to figure out the case. He tries to solve the case. A lot of people, especially when it comes to in the police department and medical fields, right? They're trying to discover something, right? And it is, how do they peel away the layers and uncover something that they're trying to figure out, right? And they got to put those puzzle pieces together. No different from any one of us, right? That, we can be a world's greatest detective. It all comes down to what we want to problem solve. It could be something like building a house, doing a renovation, and how to figure out how to make sure that this all works. Or it could be something like, I immediately, in my head, it's going, oh, well, Dexter Morgan. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of morbid. But he was a blood splatter analyst. So he's trying to do the detective work from a blood splatter's point of view. Batman, he's got computers. He'll get prints. He'll get some DNA, and he'll try to discover on his own, right? And putting stories together, right? It's so interesting. And I think a lot of us appreciate that about Batman. In Matt Reeves' Batman, he wanted to ensure that every single one of these films that he's going to release, Batman is doing detective work, where we did not see a lot in any of the previous films. We have seen it. I disagree with a lot of people that says, "Oh, there's no detective work in any of the films." That's a lie. There was, right? You know, you got Bruce Wayne doing some detective work in The Dark Knight. Same thing with, you know, in Batman '89, Bruce Wayne sitting at the computers he's saying to Alfred, "Let's go shopping," right? And he's trying to figure out the Joker's product, where it was for Smilex. Okay, he's doing detective skills or detective work. Now that leads me into number 7, gadgets and technology, which I find to be probably one of the most interesting. It was funny because I was just listening to Holy Badcast, and they were talking about, like, what would you have in Batman's utility belt? Highly recommend that you go and check those guys out at Holy Badcast. They do an excellent job. But it's like, it makes you think, like, you know, Batman has so much technology and so many gadgets in his utility belt. What would you put on your utility belt, right? In terms of gadgets, like, the guy's got a grapple gun, right? And right away, it allows him to fly through the air. Or it's something like, you know, he grabs Vicky Vale, asks her how much she weighs, and then he just says, "Hold on," you know. You know, that's one of the gadgets. Another one, it might be a batarang. For some reason, I just think it's so cool. You know, in The Dark Knight, he's got the sonar vision where he's able to locate where the voices are coming from, where people are, and it's kind of seeing through walls. Right, I thought that in The Dark Knight they did an excellent job. But those are some of the key pieces of technology and gadgets that he has. Batman '89, he's got, I believe it's the line launcher. So he goes in to save Vicky Vale, and, you know, I've seen the line launcher before, even in the Arkham series, right? I thought that was a super useful tool. Other gadgets, I mean, you think of, I don't know, the remote control batarang. You got the remote hacking device where he's able to hack into specific spots. He's got the smoke pellets, like that just allow him to disappear. You know, the explosive gels, again, like in the forensic scanners, like certain things that he's able to scan and kind of discover any DNA on the spot. Like, this guy's got a utility belt with all these sorts of gadgets. Voice synthesizer, another cool one. You know, for Batman, I think that they're just extremely useful. And for some reason, a lot of people are wondering, like, man, like, where does he get those wonderful toys? It's pretty sweet, right? Like, and we're always wondering as moviegoers, well, what's Batman got in his treasure chest today, right? I thought that Matt Reeves' Batman did an excellent job as well as to utilizing each of his gadgets, right? Like, he's got a batarang that's also kind of like a knife on his chest. It was the bat symbol, right? He was able to use it as to crack or cut down that line, right? And he's got gadgets, right? Even his own grapple gun. He's got even that squirrel outfit or squirrel suit where he's able to fly. That's not necessarily in the utility belt, but it is part of his technology. And then he's got an in-depth computer. I mean, like, where he's going to be able to discover anything about anybody and do a deep dive. He's basically like a cop, right? Where he is doing the research. He's putting in the work, you know? And I love it, right? Like, you know, what's a Batman film without any technology? I guess we're going to find out with the Cape Crusader coming out August 1st. I'm really curious as to see how he uses his gadgets, and excited in an excited way. But I love it, right? And not only that, like, based on the type of technology that he's got or the gadgets, like, he's able to kind of modify it based on where he's going, his adventure, if you'd say. Like, you know, when it comes to technology, he's able to adjust if it's super cold, super warm, right? Maybe he's got, like, I love Batman Forever where there's that huge fire and then Batman covers himself in a cape and then he touches something in his utility belt where it kind of protects him from that fire, right? So cool. Now, that leads me into number 8. So, Batman's relationship with his sidekicks, like Robin, Batgirl, his role as a mentor resonate with many, many people. They put Batman with Robin to kind of lighten Batman up, to show him as a father figure and how he could be a mentor to someone like Robin or to someone like Batgirl. He is also he looks up to certain mentors. I mean, Alfred Pennyworth being one, Lucius Fox being another, and Commissioner Gordon. Bruce Wayne loved his father, Thomas Wayne, and it's obvious that he missed him, and he's probably longing for a type of mentor or father figure. And he's got 3 big ones that he looks up to in many different ways. One as a couple, I guess a few as a protector, right? But just to guide him. And 2 out of the 3, Alfred and Lucius, know who Batman really is. And then there's Commissioner Gordon, who he would say he doesn't care who Batman is, but he does care about Batman itself. And, he protects him in a certain way. And there's a certain level of respect between the two. And I think especially throughout the Nolan saga and even Matt Reeves, there's a special camaraderie, special relationship amongst those two. I loved it when it was even in BTAS, Batman the Animated Series. Batman and Commissioner Gordon have a very unique relationship where they just trust one another. Doesn't necessarily mean Gordon agrees with what Batman does, but there is something special amongst them. And, I always think about, I think it was like Holiday Nights. It was an episode from Batman, the New Animated Adventures. And it was a Christmas episode, if I'm not mistaken, or a holiday episode. And Commissioner Gordon is just sitting there waiting, tells the waiter, yeah, he's late sometimes. And then Batman shows up, and they have like this little yearly tradition where they'll just meet up for a cup of coffee. Right? Pretty cool. And then Batman just kind of leaves it behind the change as soon as Gordon is distracted. So he's got mentors that he looks up to, and then there's people that he kind of looks over. And they play an important role into Batman's mythos and in Batman's life. Dick Grayson being, I guess, the biggest one, as to Dick Grayson's parents passed away, no different from Bruce. And Bruce has to help Dick channel his anger. And what does he do? He helps train him, right? Be the mentor that he had growing up. And what does he do? He makes him into Robin, right? Same thing with Batgirl. He's providing guidance. And I guess in Batman Forever, they do an excellent job where, Bruce Wayne is just like, no, I'm not putting you into this line of work. I don't want you to kind of get injured or hurt yourself, which, I mean, I don't blame him. It's a kid. Why would you want a kid going into this? And I think that even when it comes to someone like, Jason Todd, where in the comics, as soon as Jason Todd died, it was the response of Batman and Bruce Wayne, how he reacted to the loss of each of them. And it really impacted the stories and Batman's mood. And then when Tim Drake came around, Batman was very hesitant, right? But again, it was a lot of the relationships that he has with the Bat family. It was the family that he never had. So Alfred is family, Dick is family, Tim Drake is family, heck, even Lucius Fox is family to an extent. And these are all people that he longed for. And then you got Leslie Tompkins, who is very much a mother figure, takes care of him. If you ever read Batman the Imposter, she's very much a mother figure. You go out and you do this. Like, there are consequences. I will let the world know who you are if you don't come and meet with me at this specific time. I don't want to give anything away, but that is a 3-issue comic, Batman the Imposter. I highly recommend you read it. Very grounded. It is excellent. Now, we're getting near the end here. Number 9. Why do we love Batman? Why? Well, he's also adaptable. Okay, this character can be put into various forms of media, and we see him everywhere, right? Whether it's comics, He is in TV shows, most notably the cartoon TV shows. He's in films and video games. I do talk about the Arkham video games quite a bit on this channel, and there's no doubt about it that really does help the popularity of Batman grow. Especially when it's, in my opinion, the best superhero games out there. The Arkham series is the best superheroes games out there. Sorry, Spider-Man. I have you. I own you in terms of the Spider-Man 1 and 2 and Miles Morales. I love the games, but it is not Arkham. But they bring something new to his story. Every single one of them brings something different, whether it's through the comics, the TV shows, right? Like they have the Batman, the animated series, and they give something different, a little different aspect as to the Batman mythos. The movies where, you have Tim Burton's Batman where, Jack Napier is the one who kills Batman's parents, not Joe Chill. Or you have Joe Chill killing Batman's parents, like thanks to Christopher Nolan, right? And then there's the video games, right? Where they're including, like they have Easter eggs about Andrea Beaumont being his love interest. And, they're always bringing something new to the story that kind of opens people's minds up. And we appreciate that. We don't want something that's constantly repeated, right? People love a good story. Doesn't matter where. But he is in every form of medium there is. I know that with Zack Snyder, Batman didn't do that well in Batman vs. Superman or even in Justice League. But, it wasn't... I do believe that a lot of it had to do with the storytelling. I think Ben Affleck crushed it as Batman. I think that was one of the truest forms of Batman there is. Right? And I think he was not the issue in that. Now, number 10, and then I'm going to put a number 11 because I'm not going to leave number 11 out. So number 10 is the symbol of hope and justice. So Batman obviously represents an idea, right? That one person can make a difference, right? So he's the idea. It's not kind of like, what Christian Bale's Batman wanted. Batman is just a symbol. Anyone can go into the suit and be Batman. And it's to stand up against corruption, crime, and since he wanted to inspire people. That was his words. I just wanted to inspire people. He didn't want people dressing up in hockey pads, but, he wanted to inspire people to do good in this world, right, through his actions. When you look at Chris Nolan's films or even Matt Reeves' most recent film, Batman is someone that wanted to instill fear. And they all learned that it's not fear that they can instill, but they also want to instill hope into people and believing that there is good in the city. And it's almost like, one of the best lines in Dark Knight Rises I love is when Catwoman, Selena Kyle, goes, "You don't owe these people anymore. You've given them everything." And Batman just goes, "Not everything, not yet." Because he still wants to give and instill hope. And he is a symbol of hope. That Batman symbol is a symbol of hope. And, I think that was the goal for, especially in Chris Nolan's Batman in The Dark Knight, was, him along with Harvey Dent. They wanted to be, the knight shining armor to save Gotham City. But it was Bruce Wayne who, unfortunately, he was like, "Listen, you could be the hope that I can never be." And unfortunately, we all know what happened to Two-Face. He died. And at the end of the Dark Knight film, arguably one of the best endings to a film, it's where, Bruce Wayne has that little speech, and it's like, people deserve to have their faith rewarded. And how do they do that? Well, it's... wow, Batman is going to be taking the blame. So near the end of that film, then you have, Batman saying, "You'll condemn me, you'll blame me, you'll set the dogs on me, because that's what needs to happen." And for that, it's like, it's people's faith have to be rewarded in that there's something good. And whether it's in Batman or at the time, like, obviously you see the ramifications in The Dark Knight Rises, but people needed to have their faith rewarded and believing in something like Harvey Dent. that he did not turn into a bad guy. Otherwise, where do the morals lie? You know? But Batman, all he wanted was to be a symbol for hope. And he wanted to be that light for people. But yeah. And I think that The Dark Knight did an excellent job. And then even bringing The Dark Knight Rises, where, you know, obviously Bane does what he does, where he broke Batman's back. He comes back and he lights it all up. He has a huge bat symbol lit up in fire as to send a message, right? And again, it's just a symbol of hope and instilling fear that, hey, Bane, I'm coming for you, right? But as fans, right, we see the symbol and it's like it resonates with all of us, right? And it's, why does it resonate? Why does that bat symbol, why does Batman resonate with each of us, right? And I think he instills hope. I think he's a symbol that we could strive to be something greater, something more, and be different from those and just do the obvious, right? Like Batman doesn't kill. He could kill any villain, really, but he chooses not to because it separates us from them. How can we be different? How can we do good, right, in this world, right? And what is it that, how can we be remembered by, right? And leave behind a legacy where this is how we are remembered, right? Obviously, at the end of Dark Knight Rises, you have a statue of Batman, and then Bruce Wayne also leaves behind the Batcave for John Blake, right? But for fans, right, Batman is something more that I think all of us kind of relate to. And yeah, we do have a personality where, you know, and again, this kind of sums everything up, and I will include number 11 because I need to. But it's like, you know, we all have different sides of us. So I guess when it comes to the complexity of the character, I guess it relates back to that as well. But we have a personality that we act with our bosses, right? And then there, you know, we might not be as relaxed with our boss, but we might be a little bit more relaxed with our spouse, our friends, right? And Bruce Wayne also carries many different masks, right? The mask I have at work with my students, it's very different, right? And very professional. I'm not going to be talking about Batman on a podcast to them, right? It is education first, right? And as a parent, no, I'm not a parent, but, you know, I look at it and it's like a lot of parents wear these types of masks as to, you're not going to be their friend. As a parent, you're not going to be their friend. You want to parent them. You want to guide them to do good, right? And again, those are morals and values that it also connects to, right? So Batman is connected in so many different ways to our personalities, and I find that we can always find a way to relate right back to who he is and what he stands for. Number 11 is going to be a bonus, and that is the Batmobile. Love the cars. I'm a big car guy, and any muscle car I see, I'm like, how can I make this into a Batmobile, right? I want to get a car that, does it come in black? Hell yeah, I'd love to have a car. I want a Corvette that is in black. And do I want an exhaust that looks just like the Batmobile? Yeah, I do. But each of Batman's cars, right? Like, so compelling. What is the Batmobile going to look like? A lot of people were not fans of the Batman, but I loved it. It was a muscle car. And again, I'm related to it. It makes me feel like, okay, if we were to build a car, that's what I'd make it look to be. Obviously, Batman 89. Actually, I just took a picture. Maybe I'll post it on the social X to share. Because I did come across a Batman 89 Batmobile. And then a couple of years ago, my wife and I went to a winery out in Niagara and came across the Adam West Batmobile. Super cool. I'll definitely post that once I am done this podcast. Now, the cars. Everyone loves the cars, right? And we're all drawn to them. And even if you're not a car person, there's something about a Batmobile chase that just, I don't know, captivates us and lures us. And I'm always amazed as to like when the Batmobile's fired up. Like I crank up the soundbar, especially when it was the Batman, and you hear that car revving up. My God. Anyway, and I think that that is one thing. You don't even have to be a car person, but you can love and appreciate a Batmobile, right? How many superheroes have a cool car like that? Not many. Okay? No offense to Spider-Man. Sorry, Superman. You guys are flying in the air. Extremely fast, mind you. And I think I'd love to fly as well. But, hell, I'm so down to have a sweet car like that. Even a tumbler. I know I'm not the biggest fan of the tumbler, but, man, you can just go through concrete walls. Yeah, sure. Okay? Or fly through rooftops somehow. Sure. I'll take it all day. Now, that is my top 10 list. Really, really curious as to what your top 10 list is. So now with that being said, you can feel free to email me. Give me your top 10 list. I'm so curious to hear about it, or make a comment. And wondering what makes you, let me pose this question. What makes you love Batman the way that you do? Okay. So now for the big announcement. Make sure you tune in not only to this episode, but episode, I'm going to say it's 13. Okay, because we're having a special guest, none other, the head librarian from the Batman Book Club, Mr. Ryan Lauer. That's right. He is part of Batman on Film, and he has got an incredible podcast I all hope you tune into. I seriously recommend it. It's the Batman Book Club. You can catch that anywhere on the socials. And he is going to be part of our next podcast. So please, please, please be sure to tune in. Now, thank you very much for tuning into today's episode. You can shoot me an email at beyondthebatsignal@gmail.com or follow along Twitter/X at beyondbatsignal. As for me, my name is Domenic Iannicca, and this is Beyond the Bat Signal, signing off.